Hello everyone, welcome to a slightly different version of the press conference review, in as much as it's night. Well, it's not really night, it's the afternoon, but it's winter time, so it's dark outside. I am outside the AXA, I don't know if you can tell, but over there, Vinny O'Connor is doing his piece to camera for Sky Sports News, and I'm doing mine here. So hopefully you won't hear me on him, and you won't hear him on mine, and everyone can get along very nicely. Getting along very nicely is something that Arne Slot is desperate for. There's been lots of talk about his position, about whether or not last night was the tipping point in this run of horrible defeats. To look at him, to see him, and I've seen him and spoken to him many times over the last 18 months, you would not necessarily look at a man who felt like his time was up. He said, "We fight on," and when he said it, it sounded like he believed it. It sounded like he had assurances that this was not the end and he would get at least one more game to try and turn it around. But as I mentioned last night in my video and in my match report, the credit that he has built up is not infinite. There will be a tipping point where it feels like those above him feel like he can no longer be the man to do the job. The question that I would say, and the question that I would say to everybody who is discussing this session, whoever it is that comes next, if it is to be a new manager, they have to make sure it's better than what's happening now. Change for change's sake is never a good thing. You have to have a plan. You have to understand exactly what it is that you want to achieve. Okay, so let's get into the actual press conference. First of all, we've got the injury updates, and there was a mixed bag. Alisson looks like he is back. He trained again, so he's shaken off the illness that kept him out last night. Alisson Wirtz his last day of rehab is today. He was in here actually taking some pictures for some sponsors, looking very happy. So it looks like he'll be available for training on Saturday. Hugo Ekitike's back spasms is not as bad as first feared, so it sounds like he's going to be in contention, although there were no guarantees that he'll be in the starting lineup. I think he's got a chance of making the bench at the very least, which suggests that Alisson Isak will be the man who starts at the London Stadium against West Ham, and he will be under pressure, just like the rest of his team, to be able to get his first Premier League goal for the side and hopefully start them off on a good footing. But before we go into all of that, it's top takeaway time. Top takeaway number one: scoring goals might be the most important thing after all. We've heard a lot from Arne Slot in recent weeks about how Liverpool conceding too many goals, and it feels like the emphasis he's put on that more than on the attacking side, mentioning Liverpool still creating chances, suggests that he feels like if he had one priority, it would be the defence. However, something else he mentioned, something some of the players were saying today about how they aren't rewarding themselves for the good moments in games. And you did sense a frustration from Slot that the times when Liverpool are putting it together are being forgotten amongst all these defeats. And he did say it was understandable, because as much as he loves to talk about performances, ultimately this is a results business. So if the good parts of your performance aren't producing results, then they are going to be forgotten, which means capitalising when you're on top is actually going to be one of the most important things. And to do that, you've got to score goals. Liverpool have got a very expensively assembled attacking line, so when they don't score goals, there's going to be lots more questions levelled at them. If you think back to the beginning of this season even, Liverpool weren't playing at their best, but what were they doing? They were outscoring their opponents. 4-2 against Bournemouth, 3-2 against Newcastle, 3-2 against Atletico Madrid. It's almost as if when they bought all of these expensive players, they were thinking, yes, we aren't perfect, there's lots of change, there's lots of churn, but if we've got that quality at the top of the pitch, we should be able to ride it out. Well, so far, whether it's through luck, whether it's through bad form, whether it's through bad finishing, whether it's through a system that doesn't really set up perfectly for the number 9s, Liverpool haven't been able to do that. So solving that conundrum is going to be so big in terms of being able to turn it around. Top takeaway number 2: everybody wants to play Liverpool right now. Arne Slot was asked about the improvements of West Ham under Nuno Espirito Santo, and he was very keen to point out that they have improved. He said he's a great coach, someone who's improved every team he's managed in the Premier League, but also referenced the fact that there were times earlier in the season when it was a good time to play against West Ham, and now it's less of a good time to play against West Ham. And it's funnily enough the same thing people were saying about Nottingham Forest after they've changed their manager with Sean Dyche. And this kind of goes into the truism about, there's been lots of talk around this being a more kind run of fixtures for Liverpool, but the truth remains that if you are playing with no confidence, you are losing game after game after game, it doesn't matter how bad the opponents are or how out of form they may or may not be. Everybody gets a chance against Liverpool. Neil Atkinson says something in his match report about how the fact that PSV smelled blood, and the reason they smell blood is because Liverpool are hemorrhaging right now, and that is so true. At the moment, Liverpool are an easy touch to score against, they're an easy touch to play against for so many different reasons. So all of the caveats of well, this might be a good game, and well, PSV aren't necessarily at the quality of some of the Premier League teams, Liverpool are at home, and Liverpool beat West Ham 5-0 at the London Stadium last season, and all of those different reasons people can grab onto to think, well, maybe this game can be different. When you're in the run that Liverpool are in, none of those things matter. Everyone else is going to be thinking, wow, it's our day to beat Liverpool today. I mean, West Ham have not beaten Liverpool at Anfield in a very long time. I believe they have won at the London Stadium a few years ago, but Liverpool normally do very well in this fixture. But they'll be sensing that this is their time. They'll be sensing, just like everybody else, just like PSV, just like Nottingham Forest, just like Crystal Palace. I mean, when you think about it, if you take Man City out of that recent run, the teams that Liverpool are losing to aren't exactly the cream of the crop, should I say, the best of the best. And that really is the damning indictment in and of itself. So, whereas previously teams would come to Anfield or come up against Liverpool and think, well, let's just not get a hiding. Now they're thinking, well, let's fill our boots. And that, for Arne Slot and his side, is a massive problem. Top takeaway number 3, Liverpool were running harder, but were they running smarter? Arne Slot mentioned the fact that the running stats for the game against PSV were better than they had been for lots of players, personal bests for quite a few of them, which felt like a bit of a riposte to the growing accusation that his team aren't trying hard enough, they weren't working hard enough, they weren't angry enough, they weren't putting in enough tackles. So he was saying, well, no, the stats say something different. These players were putting in that effort. But if you look at the game itself, the eye test will tell you something different. There were still wide open spaces for PSV to run through. Think of the second goal and the way that they were able to advance for 40 yards without getting a tackle. So it's all well and good running around, and sometimes if you're a player, you want to get the crowd on side, so you want to look like you're doing something. You look like you're busy, running around, running hard. But if you aren't doing it within a structure, it's pointless. And if you look at the way Liverpool were pressing in that game, it was woeful. They were all over the place. And so sometimes you need to have that structure in order to put the effort in. It's no good having one without the other. Otherwise, you're just going to end up chasing shadows. Okay, it's time for me to hear from Arne Slot. This is what he had to say to my question. Hi Arne, you spoke just now about the messaging between you and the players, and also you spoke about how there was good moments mostly in the first half compared to the second half. If you think back to last season, there were so many occasions where you were able to change things at half-time and get an improved performance. So, do you think there's any difference in how you're adapting and assessing what's happening in that half-time period, or do you feel like the players are still taking on that messaging in the same way?
I think we always remember the last 1 or 2 games the most. I think our second half performance against City was much better than our first half performance. If I go further back, so the first loss we had was against Crystal Palace. Our second half performance was much better than the first half performance. So it has been, all the losses we've had have had a different story. And the last 2, indeed, the second half wasn't as good as the first half, but in the last 2 we conceded straight after half-time. After already being disappointed in the first half, not getting what we thought we deserved. And like I said, in my opinion, the players kept on fighting after 2-1, because we were able to create 2 or 3 very good moments and chances. The Cody Gakpo header is, I think, usually a goal. But this moment of time, not for us. We've generated enough set pieces in that part of the game as well. But after the 3-1, again, that's the part people tend to remember, which is normal because the last part of the game. That was, of course, not of the standards and of the fighting spirit we would like to have in our team.
Slot pushed back on the idea that all of the games haven't been as good in the second half, and he referenced games against Crystal Palace and against Manchester City where there was an improvement in the second half. Well, my riposte to that would be, Against City, I think we're going to say that the improvement was minimal. And against Crystal Palace, that improvement was mitigated by the fact that not only did they then go and concede the winning goal, but it only came about from throwing the kitchen sink at things. And that idea of Liverpool just throwing as many attackers on as they plan to try and save the game might look good and it might work in the short term, but it's not sustainable. It's not something that you can rely on. Now the funny thing is Slot actually cited the goals they conceded early in the second half against Forest and PSV as the reason for why the performances in the second half weren't as good. But those goals conceded is exactly what I'm talking about. That wasn't happening last season. They weren't coming out of the dressing room at half time and being so sloppy and being so switched off. That's what's changed. Now, Slot seemed to think that his messages are still getting through to the players, and he mentioned those improvements in the games I referenced as a reason of why he still thinks that his message is getting through. But then that just makes me question the nature of the message. Is he saying the right things? Is he actually adapting and assessing what's going wrong in the right way? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see exactly how Liverpool respond at West Ham. Now, I'm going to have to wrap this up quick because the battery is about to die on this camera and I've just had to stop while Ibu Konate came through. He was doing a bit of filming for a charity. So yes, that was today's press conference review. You will find me at all the regular places. I will not be at the London Stadium on Sunday. I'm going to be on Manchester City duty this weekend up against Leeds United, so there'll be a match report on Substack about that. But I will be back here for the next Liverpool game, asking Arne Slot questions. Well, asking the Liverpool manager questions. We'll have to wait and see if that's still Arne Slot. We'll see you soon.